Okay, so let's begin. So, some simple thing that everyone knows, but it is since we are doing in this medium, it is better to reiterate. So, it is better to keep our microphones, not yours, microphone in mute mode until it is not required, and also keep your video off so that our quality is good. And in between, if somebody comes. Okay. So any doubt, you can type, say if you feel like you will miss it, so you can type, and once we are done, we will go through that. Why? Because we will be recording this, so in case if any of us misses going forward, so they can come back and check. This is not valid for this class, but going forward it will be. So it would be better you, because it will be once in a week, so it is better, it is useful. For discussions, we already have WhatsApp, and yes, we will restrict our discussions to course only. So with this, we will start. So we should call upon Goddess of Knowledge first, so that this effort is going to be fruitful. So Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhirvavatu me sada. So in this shloka, if you see, there are some small things we have written. So this is, since we are starting, so let's start in like hard way. So one thing is Sambodhan. Sambodhan means vocative case, you can say, or calling somebody. So wherever it is written Sambodhan means we are calling. So calling whom? We are calling to Saraswati, Varade, and Kamarupini. These are her adjectives. And then if you see Namaha Tubhyam, we are saluting you. For what? We are going to do Vidya Arambham. We are going to begin learning. Karishyami means in future we are going to do. Siddhi Bhavatu. Let it be successful. May to me, Sada is always. So this is the prayer meaning what we did. So with this, we'll look some introduction about this course, what it is. So it's a very beginner level course where anyone who knows Devanagari script can join. And as a complete course, it has 4 levels named as Pravesha, Parichaya, Shiksha, and Kovida. So Kovida means it is a 2-year course and 4 semester. Every 6 months there is one exam. So that used to happen on center, but this time it happened through online because of this situation. So what this course is designed to provide you is on completion of all 4 levels, it is guaranteed if you put some little effort, you will be able to understand texts like Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. Second thing is, if you are interested in further studies, then and you already have a graduate degree, then this course will it will act as a bridge course. So if you have this course, few universities will admit you in direct master degree. And third thing is, this is a side effect of learning Sanskrit. Our mother tongue gets enriched, and you will see this, like you have so many words which you might be using from so many long. How beautiful they are, you will come to know once you know how they are derived, what is the funda behind they are in this form. So in my view, these are the outcomes, and you should tune your expectation accordingly. So you don't expect like after this course you will be something who knows very good grammar or something like that. So because this is for very beginners. So there are some basic questions. Since I am teaching from I think last 3 years now, so these are the questions which I found people ask very often. So like means most of us are not like in school age. So people ask like, will it be easy for me to understand in this age? So answer of this is it is inbuilt in our genes. So the moment you will start putting little emphasis on learning, from that same day you will start understanding. So nothing to worry at any age, starting or older age, you will understand it very clearly. So people like says I have my native language is something different. Again, will it conflict? So no, it will not. Even you will see like most of Indian native languages are will complement, knowledge of them will complement your learning. So do you need to know Devanagari script? Yes, you need to know. And people can ask like why I need to know, because it is I have seen Sanskrit written in other scripts also, like script in like in Kannada and Telugu. You can see shlokas are written. So why you need to learn in Devanagari? Because when this printing started, when English people started printing, they preferred Devanagari only to print. And after that time, when books started getting created, so most of the books are in Devanagari. So if you have to understand, it is better to understand Devanagari. Otherwise I feel like our other scripts are capable enough to um, hold the Sanskrit sounds, but still it is better you learn Devanagari. So few questions we will not be answering. So like few common fighting kind of questions are, it is the oldest language, or it is most suitable for computers, or reading this will make your brain sharper. So this all, there is no point in arguing something without knowing. So let's experience yourself, and after I think 6 months or so, if your interest remains, it means it has some quality, and then you will have some data to talk about. So basically means when we say what is means how many type of particular languages are there, it is like how many dialects are there and like that. So every language has dialect. So some way like Hindi, if you see, Hindi has many dialects. So people who are not from Hindi region, they understand like Hindi is only one. But if you go in, especially anywhere in UP, MP or somewhere, around every 100 and 150 kilometer, you will have a dialect. And it is not like something very natural kind of inflection. If you see Kabir Das, he used to write in something which is not pure Hindi. A person who knows only Hindi, whatever the government Hindi is, he cannot understand that. Tulsi Das, he wrote in something different. There is a Braj Bhasha in which other people have written. So there are dialects. So like that, this slide is trying to explain. So is there any dialect in Sanskritam or Sanskrit also? So yes, there is. So there are two type of Sanskrita. One Sanskrit which is used in Veda. So that is not used anywhere else apart from Veda. That is called as Vedic. Another one is which is apart from Veda. That is called as Laukik. Laukik means which one is used in Loka or world, and Vedic means which one is used in Veda. So Laukik contains everything apart from Veda. So like all your Kavyas, Ramayanam and Mahabharata and all, everything is in Laukik Samskrita only. What we are going to learn here is Laukik Samskrita. So it will, end of the day, it will not make you proficient in Vedic Samskrita, but you will be able to understand, at least I would say at the end of it, 60% you can understand. So little introduction about grammar. So Sanskrit grammar, how it is. So in Sanskrit, grammar is called as Vyakaranam. So whatever currently we use grammar, there were so many grammars, but at a time when Maharshi Panini came, so at that time he developed some grammar which is named as Ashtadhyayi, and he developed in such a way like request you to join. Preeti madam, are you able to see now it properly? It is, I think it is zoomed only. Okay, fine. So after Panini started working on grammar, he worked in such a way, like he perfected in such a way, there was nothing left. So after Panini, all earlier grammars, you can say, disappeared, and his grammar only started ruling Sanskrit grammar world. So what he wrote, what work he created, that work is called as Ashtadhyayi. So just if you pronounce it slowly, Ashtadhyayi, so you can understand it's a book which has 8 chapters. So in that 8 chapter, he covered all the grammar, and you will see how beautiful it is when you will get chance. So later he told, like since language is like a river, it keeps on flowing. So he opened an opportunity, like anyone, whoever rishi comes after me, if he wants to change, then if he is able to satisfy the rule of grammar, then his work will be accepted as authentic one. So in this way, later Katyayana, one rishi came, and then last Patanjali. So Patanjali came around I think 200 BC. What is the most accepted date? So after 200 BC, you can say grammar got freezed. So if you understand Sanskrit of today, then you can understand any literature created in Sanskrit from today till at least 200 BC without any other knowledge of old or new something. Nothing is required. Nothing changed after that. Everything is very tightly bound with the grammar. So these 3 people created this grammar, so that is why it is called as Trimuni Vyakaranam. 3 is for 3, Muni is for Rishi, and Trimuni Vyakaranam means Vyakarana created by 3 sages. So now your basic question you may ask, like does it cover Vedic Vyakarana also? If I learn this Vyakarana, then will it be helpful for Vedic also? Yes. So this Vyakarana contains formula, or you can say methods for both Laukika and Vedic Samskrita. So if you see from reader point of view, like what this course is, so you can say it's for beginner. You don't need any teacher. Book and things are created for correspondence mode only. So you actually don't need any teacher. If you read 20 minutes a day, in 6 months of time, you can easily finish everything, and you can understand also. But if somebody is there, if you feel like somebody is going through like we are doing, so it is going to help, then it is fine. But if whenever we have time, we will try to do that. With expectation, like once you will know this thing, then you also will do the same, because that is the way we can make this come back to our society. So this book, whatever you will get, Pravesha book, if you are already having, this is having 10 chapters which you have to read, and each chapter is divided into 8 parts. So if you see, the first part in every chapter is named as Bhasha Abhyasa. It means grammar. The next part is Vyavharik Shabdaha, which is vocabulary. Next is Riddle Prahelikaha. So this is first one is to make your some foundation. Second one is to when you something so that you can start communicating, start framing small word. Third one is for little humor. Then there are some sangraha vishaya. So in this there are some shlokas and things, so that you can start understanding what you were, maybe whoever don't know, maybe whatever you were praying or doing something without knowing. So you will start understanding, like we did our initial Saraswati Vandana. So with that, with very first day, you can understand what actually you are doing. So some shlokas are there in this section. Then next is the Vangmaya Parichaya. So in this you will have some Sanskrit literature, what is present. It's a kind of history kind of thing. Then comes a story section. So in this some very small, very grammatically simple stories are given to practice what you learnt in Bhasha Abhyasa. So next section has again some words which will help you, not words, sometimes sentences, which will help you to converse. So because if you see, if I tell, say Kannada, so if I tell I will teach Kannada in English and I expect you to be a frequent speaker and reader, you will never be. So to learn any language, the first and foremost thing is to speak in that language. Or if you are not having like Sanskrit, you will not get a person to speak with, then learn Sanskrit through Sanskrit. We are doing this in English to begin with, but at the suitable moment where you will start understanding small things, we will quickly shifting our English to Sanskrit, and at the third level and our fourth level, there will be no English required because you will understand. So this is philosophy here. Another section is called as Subhashitam. So this is one of the very good, you can say, treasure of Sanskrit literature, where so many good things are said in Sanskrit. So they also are taught one by one in every chapter. So there are few things like in green, this one, this one, this one. So this doesn't require any teaching. So I will not be going through this. If you have any doubt, we will anyway cover. But I will, when I am, whatever I will teach only these which are in black, and this also is in black. So these you have to read your own. They are simple, but any help required, we are there. So what best practices, what with my experience, what I have is that some people are like hungry people. So once they start collecting books and so many things, something from here, something from there. So actually, if you are serious, so this will hamper your journey. Each book is designed keeping in view something, some study, some research is there. So just have some faith and follow that particular thing. At least for 6 months you can follow and see if it is serving, it is taking you on the track, whatever you want. If it doesn't, then anyway you can switch. And anyway, you are not doing for beating some competition or doing something in very short or specified span of time. So it's like a hobby. So when you are doing a hobby, give some time. So I would say if you are selecting this course, stay here at least for 6 months. Then only you look anything else, because once you know, then only you can compare also, like this one is better or that one is better. Our intention is not to discuss anything about exam. So our thing is only for learning. When for exam things will happen automatically. So it's like you keep on doing your work, exam will automatically be good. So don't like pursue this thing through this point, like I want to do good in exam, so how I should do and all. So don't worry about that we will do in last 1 month. If you want, we can do it in exam way. So I think 5th of this month, 2 days back, result came for last batch, and I think most of them are 90 plus. So same way they did, because this is my way of doing, and they practice exam at very end and they got around 90 plus for exam pattern. But other thing is, now they write messages to me when they are writing, even in group they write in Sanskrit. It is not 100% correct, but that initial fear, whatever they had, somehow most of them are able to overcome. So while doing last batch, I felt like there is a need of place where you can do some exercise, some quiz kind of thing, so that you don't need to go read and all. Whenever you are free, you can do some other way to visualize some things. So for that, I created a website. So this is a website which is available to you people also. So I kept it all free, like no ad and anything, so that no distraction is there and you can focus it and use it for learning. So I will tell how to use it going forward. And again, if you have any doubts, so what people prefer, like they write directly to me. So I don't have any issue, because whenever I will get time, I will reply. But this way, the collaborative learning will not happen. So I would encourage you to write in group. If you have any thing like what people will think, so let people think whatever they want to think. You write in groups, so that few people who don't have habit to ask questions or discuss, they also will get benefited, and anyway answering at one place will help everyone. So this is what I collected from my last classes. So this I recommend. If you find it useful, you can follow, otherwise also it is fine. So now with this, I will give a basic introduction of whatever this language you are going to study. Very basic, very top level introduction. And this today's class will not be from any like any book chapter or something. So today is totally, you can say, building block kind of class. From next one we will start doing chapters. So first thing comes akshara. So akshara, if you see, so a comes as negation. So kshara means something which decays. Akshara means something which doesn't decay. So akshara is the minimal sound, valid sound, what is used in language. Or you can say when it is mapped, that sound is, when that sound is mapped, then you can say it's a letter, whatever you are writing. So now if you see, when you pronounce a, so if you are a Devanagari person, you will write in some other way. If you are some other person, like if you are writing in Gujarati, then that a will not exactly as in Hindi. So you are representing one particular sound in some symbol. So that is what I am trying to tell here. So a smallest unit of language, that is one akshara, and when you are writing on paper, that becomes one lipi symbol, sanketa. So lipi is called as script. Again, so when you combined those aksharas in such a way like you get some meaning, so that is called as a word. So suppose now I have a, one sound is there, and this sound is a valid sound in Sanskrit. So I took some other sound like ksha and some other sound like ra and combined them together and then make a word, akshara. So this became a word, or in Sanskrit we will call it, this is a padam. So just listen these Sanskrit words, and you will feel like they are not very alien, and we will be using, so slowly in 2 or 3 classes you also will be very comfortable with this. So now we know the basic unit of language, this language or any language, is akshara. When the language is always spoken, so you will be amazed with this, like Panini, if you say his time, if you say it's around 600 BC, he conceptualized all grammar, everything in his mind. There was nothing to write, and for very long it was not written at all. So everything is in oral. So simply here also you can see whole language is oral. One part of that is you can make the symbol of that whatever sound, the language sound, and you can call it is a written part. Okay, so now you combine the small units of language and made a word. So you cannot take any units of Sanskrit and combined in any way and say it is a word. It should be a meaningful combination. Meaningful means it should be a name, or it should refer some action or something like that. So we'll see what. So in Sanskrita, word or padam may be of 2 types. 2 means only 2 types, no more types. So what are those types? One type is called as sup. Sup is a grammatical name. Common name is nama, or whatever we say in sanya, or in English you can say noun or name. And second type is thing. Thing is grammatical name. Just for information I have kept here. Common name is kriya. In English, you call verb. So the two kind of padam, two kind of words only in whole Sanskrita. One is sup, other is ting, or one is nam, other is kriya. So if you see how they define in grammar like this, so they will say sup tingantam padam. So this is one formula, one sutra, which says padam is sup or ting. So that is easy to understand, but it will be complex at this level. And Sanskrit says anything you are using in Sanskrit, it should be pada. It should not be any other thing. So you know the definition completes. So anything you have, it should be pada. If it should be pada, then it should be either noun or verb. So either noun or verb. That's it. So nothing else will be there. Again, there are inside classifications, but on top level only two types. Now, as we saw in last one, like when you have meaningful arrangement of sounds, then you got the padam. Now, if you take so many padas and arrange them so that they are internally related with each other and they give again a meaning, so then you will say this is a sentence. So we can say related padas or related padani. Related means related to each other. Then makes a sentence. How you can say this? If I say Ram, Mohan, Shyam, if three valid padam I take, Ram, Mohan, Shyam, and I put them in one place like I am pronouncing now, it doesn't make a sentence because they are not related with each other. Ram, Mohan, Shyam, nothing, it gives no meaning. So that is why we say related padas. So like Ram is brother of Mohan and of Shyam. So like that, when you will make the relation between padas, then it will become a sentence. And these rules are generic. It is not related to Sanskritam. So now question is, how small, what is the smallest sentence in Sanskrita? So there is a karika, you can say, one small corollary or rule, which is like ek ting vakya. So a simple verb is a complete vakya or the smallest vakya, you can say. So like in English, you can say, if you are not in literary way, you can say going. So if you can understand, right? In some context, if somebody is saying going, so you understood. So similarly here, the rule says, or the way they define is ek ting vakya. So one verb is a valid name. So that is the smallest name. So the grammar part of book, whatever first part we have saw here, Bhasha Abhyasa. If you see here, this first part, Bhasha Abhyasa, it is in all chapters, it is divided in two parts. So first part is called as Namapadam or noun part. Second part is called as Kriya Padam. Or you can say in all 10 chapters, whatever the grammar portion is, half it will teach you about nouns, half it will teach you about verb. So you will say like, what are these Nam Padani? So Nam Padani are simply nouns. They include adjectives and all those things also in Sanskrit. So adjective is not a separate type, it's noun only. And what are Kriya Padanis? Are verbs. Verbs are in any sentence, the padam or the word which shows the action happening in that sentence is verb. It is same again as in all other languages. I am going. So whatever shows the action is verb. Here also you can do the same way. The name only you have to know that here it is called as Kriya. If you think Padani and Padam. So Padam you can see here and then Padani. Padam means one, Padani means plural. Don't worry about this, just listen and it will come. Okay. So next question is how these nouns and verbs are made. So how they get derived. So in Sanskrit, everything is very mathematical. So nothing comes like which you cannot explain. Suppose in English, somebody says, how you got the word also. So can you tell what is the etymology of also? Why it means this? So it may be difficult for everyone or for normal English user. But in Sanskrit, every word you can start tracing back and then you will go and find why this word is there, why it means this. Like now, say everybody say yoga. So if you ask somebody what is yoga or what is dharma, so then there is everything. It will go back, and from there it will come here. So there will be no confusion. So all the verbs in Sanskrita are derived from root words. They are called as dhatu. So dhatu are the roots from which all the Sanskrit verbs are derived. So then you will have a question like, if Sanskrit is so vast, so there should be so many dhatus also. So no. So if you have it is like if you any mathematics you see, you can generate big things from small things. So in whole Sanskrita you have around 2000 dhatus, and if you see how many words they can generate, it is infinite. So next is dhatavaha. Now I am telling the plural. So dhatus are not padani. They are not padam. So you cannot use dhatus because rule says you have to use only padam. Dhatus are just dhatus. They are the basic form or crude form. So suppose there is a dhatu named pat. So this dhatu itself means, or the root word itself means to read. So now when you have to make use of this thing, then you will some grammatical system will convert this root into this form. It will make it pathati. Then it will be called as padam, and then only it can be used in sentence. So this may sound little different or complex, but it is not. It is a very simple and again very methodical way of generating this. We will see that. What I wanted to tell, still rule prevails everywhere. Dhatu is not pada because it is a core thing or base thing. If you have to use a dhatu or if you have to use a kriya pada in your sentence, somehow you have to convert it into pada. Whole grammar is this only. How to take ra words or ra sounds and convert them into meaningful things. So similarly, if root of kriya or verbs is called dhatu, then what the root of noun is called? So root of noun is called as pratipadik. So this is called a noun root is pratipadik. So all the nouns are generated from pratipadiks. So like you see, there is a pratipadik named bala. When it will be converted to noun, it is called as balah in Sanskrit. So like Ram is a pratipadik. When you will use in Sanskrit words, you will call this Rama. So these are the roots for these both types, and only two types are there. So we are done. Now comes the numbers. So that is vachanam. So number is called as vachanam. Number means in any action, how many people are doing, or if there is a number like any noun, any person, then how many are there. So all like whatever modern languages we use, there are mostly two numbers, ekavachana and bahuvachana. So singular and plural. But in Sanskrita there is one extra vachana or extra number that is called as dual. So if you see, so many things in nature are two only. So Sanskrit says like why to put them in plural. So like you have two eyes, but in English you will say eyes, like you have multiple. So in Sanskrit you have, if you have to tell human eyes, you will use some other word which is in dual form. If you have to tell eyes of Lord Shiva who has three eyes, then you will use some different form. That is the real plural because it is not two, more than two. Similarly, you have so many things, two are there, and again body and atma too, so many things. So that is why it still remains. Some old languages, I think Latin and all also had dual, but now modern languages, I don't think except Sanskrit any language has it. So both Namapada and Kriyapada, both noun and verbs can be in all these three numbers. So how? Suppose one person is there, so you can say he. Then two person is there, then you can say they too. If many are there, then you can say they all. And in action, same thing will happen. It has to match with the noun. So if suppose one person is reading, you will say one thing, ekvachana. If two people are reading, you will say two things. And if three people are reading, the verb will change like for three people. Like in other language, it changes for singular and plural. So example of noun, if you see, if noun root we take Rama. So if one Rama is there, we will call him Ramaha. If two Ramas are there, we will call him Ramau. If more than two Ramas are there, we will call them Ramaha. So in now you see this information is overloaded in the Rama itself, like how many Ramas are there. So there are other informations also which are overloaded in Rama itself, that we will come when we will start our chapters. So if you write Ramau, so many things becomes clear, like in the sentence, that we will start enjoying once we will have small sentences. Similarly for verb, again if we say whatever we took last, patha. So if one person is reading, you will say pathati. If two people are reading, pathataha. If more than two are reading, you will say pathanti. So like sarve, bhavantu, sukhinaha, bhavatu, bhavantu, like that. If you see, you will start making little link. So if you know the verb, if you know the action, you will figure out how many are doing. So if I say pathanti, you will understand. I need not to tell, like there are many people who are studying. Since verb is loaded with this thing, you understood. Pathataha, you will understood two people are reading without telling the noun part or pronoun part. So gender wise, again gender wise there is no surprise. The only three gender, whatever masculine, and feminine and neuter. So gender, only nouns will have gender. Verb will not have gender. Verb is gender free. It is not like in Hindi. Vah jata hai and vah jati hai. It will not happen in Sanskrit. Sah gachati means that boy or some male person goes, and sa gachati means the girl goes. Like Ramaha gachati, Sita gachati. Both are gachati. So nothing to worry about gender in verb. So how nouns gender is, you can say Ramah is masculine, Rama is feminine, Phalam is neuter. So basic, for initial few chapters, you can have a basic, you can say framework in your mind, like anything ending with two dot, visarga, aha, is masculine. Anything ending in a, e, like that is all feminine. Anything ending in ma is all neuter. So pathati will be same. So if I have to say Rama pathati, Rama pathati, and this fellow if you say Phalam cannot, so I can say Sanganakam pathati, computer reads. So verb doesn't have gender. Again, like in other languages, you see the object for which you are using the word, and then you decide like what gender it is. So like in Hindi, if you say Yusa, if a lady is there, then for sure it is going to be a Strilinga. But Sanskrit is not like that. So Sanskrit follows again its formulas, and a lady can be, a word representing a lady can be a Pumlinga word also, and it can be a Napumsaklinga word also. So it all depends on the way they are derived, not what they are pointing to. But initially, all the words the book will present you to not to confuse you. They all will be like modern way. What they will point, they will like the same gender the word also will have. For example, if you say mitraha, so if you have a friend, you cannot call him mitraha because mitraha is son. You have to call him mitram. So mitram becomes neuter, but you are pointing to either a boyfriend or a girlfriend, right? So he is not neuter, but this is the way it is. So like for patni, patni, if you see ending in e sound, so it is a strilinga. But there is something, some other word for wife, that is called as dara, that is a pumlinga. Then other word is there that is called as kalatram, that is a napumsaklinga, that also means wife. So take it as a beauty. Don't get bogged down by this thing. This all will not come in regular uses and whatever we are going to use. Just for keeping our view open, I am telling. So now comes the doer of the action. So we knew that in sentence action happening is called as verb. So who is doing the action is called as the doer. So depending on who is doing, in English we have person. So like in English we say when neither me or nor the person in front of me is doing, so then we call him third person. So like he goes, so he is a third person. It is not I, not you. Similarly, in Sanskrit also, three persons are there, but the confusion is third of English is first in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, it is called as Prathama Purusha. So maybe for showing respect, like someone who is not us, so he should get the first order. They might have made it, but no history, just out of thinking, logical thinking, I am telling. So Pratham Purusha means somebody who is neither I nor you. Then Madhyam Purusha means person in front of you or you in English. And Uttam Purusha means myself. When I am talking about like I am going. So in Sanskrit you will say Aham Gacchami. You are going. So Tvam Gacchasi. And he is going. Saha Gacchati. So if you see verb now Gacchati, Gacchasi, Gacchami. Verb changed to tell you the person who is the doer of this action. So with this, if you have understood this, now you can relate why in Sanskrit word order is not required. So because verb is having all the information, whatever you were having from to, I, is, are, am, me, ne, te, se, everything is removed and all the information is loaded on the verb and noun itself. Now when I am saying Gacchami, you understood this fellow him telling for himself. If I say Gacchasi, it means I am telling you to go. So that is the way verbs are arranged. So this person only verb will have as means it is obvious, and nouns will not have person. Nouns will have gender, which verbs will not have. It should be obvious. Okay. So now we'll talk about little about kind of dictionaries. So whatever we have seen, so many words, how to arrange them. So how to classify particular words or nouns, how to group them. So in English, these words, noun or adjective or verb, everything is arranged from beginning letter. So like starting from A, then AA, then AB, then AC. So that is that holds good for those languages which has limited words. So if you see English vocabulary, it is very limited as compared to Sanskritam. Sanskritam has infinite words and it can generate. So that is the reason practically you can't make any dictionary out of it. So what they did, still you have to have some dictionary where people can refer commonly used words or get meaning of. So what they did, instead of making this way dictionary starting from beginning, they started making from ending. So suppose I say Devanagari, so like what is written here in this one. So instead of starting from D and arranging, they will look that what is the ending thing. And then it is ending in E. So there you can say this is a word ending in E. So for word in Sanskrit, one other word is used that is called as kar. Kar means C-A-R, kar. So ending is E and for ending the word is ant. So if you combine all together, the classification becomes Ikaranta. So you have heard, I think, Akaranta Shabda, Akaranta Shabda, like that. So classification will happen like that. So Rama. So if you see Ra, A, Ma, A. So it is ending in small A. So it is called as Akaranta Shabda. Then Rama. So it is ending in A, big sound. So it is Akaranta Shabda. So if you go to this website, there we have this one utility and that is called dissect word. So there if you select this encoding, currently we support Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam and other Roman this thing and Devanagari. So you write any word and just do this. So it will split it and you can figure out what the ending of this word is. It is for initially it will help you, otherwise from sound, if you are following the sound, you anyway will understand. So now we'll see how simple words are made so that you can start making some sense. So we'll take a word, he reads, in English. So what is the noun and pronoun here? You can say simply he. What is the gender? He is telling it's a masculine gender. How many people are there who are reading? So it's a singular. And so it's a singular. And now we will come and try to have these questions in Sanskrit asked, and we'll see like if how we will say the same thing in Sanskrit. So the root word what is for he is called as tad. Don't worry about this, it is a root word as of now, just take like this. And sorry, when in masculine for one person it gets converted to saha. How it happens, no need to worry. Saha, like for he, it became saha. Now what action is happening is reading, that is called as kriya. Who is reading is called as purusha. Here neither I am reading nor you are reading, so in Sanskrit it will become pratham purusha is the person. What number? Again you said ekvachanam, so Sanskrit also it will be ekvachanam. Now we need to figure out what reading is called. So for that we already know from previous slides, pat is the dhatu, is the root word for to read or reading, it means to read. So we need a word which is third person singular form of this particular patha. So that word is pathati. So now we can safely say the same, he reads as saha pathati, that person reads. Here one thing to you will see always that it is everywhere again, like he and this I go, you go. So here also if you see this, here it is strict because it will not follow any rule for one particular sentence. Sanskrit, if rule is applied, then it will get applied to all category. So whatever will be the vachana of the doer, same vachana will verb also have. So pathati means one person is reading, so saha also should be one. So they always will remain in sync. So noun and verbs number will be in sync always. So simply if I say bala, which is the root pratipadik for balaha or the for kid, and nam, which is dhatu or verb root for to salute, and I give it to you and ask you like make a simple sentence like this we made earlier, you can simply just follow the pattern. Bala will become balaha, nam will become namati, means boy salutes. So this became a sentence, simple sentence. Okay, so little bit introduction I will give it for this site, how you can start using it. So till now for all 10 chapters for last batch I did, so for all 10 chapter of Pravesha, quizzes are made, multiple choice quizzes. I will add true false and writing small answer type quizzes also, that are there. So but don't do them as of now, we'll do that chapter 1 when you finish chapter 1 in our class, means after 2 classes. So all these sessions I will try to record because last time somehow somebody else was responsible for recording and that didn't happen properly. So because later if you want to see anything here I can do it fast, and later if you want to see anything you can go through. With the technology available there is no harm doing. So this slide whatever I am using, this also I will upload there so that if you want you can download and go through again. Yes, and there is a workbook I had created, so in that I have added all the major things and given space to write in that book itself, so that people found it helpful. Same I used when I was doing this exam also. So you can check that out also if you can, then you can print it out. It has all the older questions and all those things asked, so that also will be a good help if you can take. The video which is this video whatever you are seeing, this is getting recorded, this also I will upload there. And if you want to see like what this how to do quizzes and how to use this website completely, there is this video on YouTube where I had created this sometime earlier to show like how to use it, and that also you can see. Many things I have changed after that, but it is still relevant. This again is in first chapter you will use this, so I have added here. So now if you see, there are, I am not going to say like how many different swaras and vyanjanas are there, because this we will keep for our next session. But you can simply match, like in Sanskrit you have more than 26 different sounds, because we have more than 26 different writing equivalents or lipi sanketas, while in English you have only 26. So simple equation can tell you all the sounds of Sanskrit you cannot represent in English. So if you see people in Bangalore, so like they pronounce so many things wrong. So what is in local names, they are not able to pronounce correctly. Marathalli, if somebody has to say, you cannot say if you are coming from like places which is not near, and you don't know the way English is written in Bangalore. So it is not because they are intentionally, they don't want to do or they want to hurt somebody's feeling. It is because of the limitation of English, because the way you are writing. So to represent Indian sounds properly, there were some changes or some additions in the Roman script, whatever is used for English. So that if you see this word, what I have written here, SAM, and there is a dot below, with this R below that, there is a dot, because if I have to say Sanskritam, I cannot write in normal English, and everybody should read the same. So for that, there is a you can say standardization that is called as IAST, that is used in your book. So that is why I have kept here. So in like for big sound of A, they say A and dot on top of this. And for small sound, like if I have to say Ramah, so when I will write R, not normal A with a bar on top, and then M, and then again M, ma for ma, there is a M, small or capital both you can write. And then for Visarga is aha sound, which is here, and H. So this way you will write. So if I would not recommend you to use this, but to understand anything already written in this, because anyway, if you can use Indian languages, that is far better. So like if you say ta, if you have to say ta sound, and then ta, so this sound, ta and ta. So how to use now? Somebody will use th for this, somebody will use t for that. So they have made these suggestions, and this is accepted thing. So it is better if you know. If you don't know, if you know Devanagari, it is not required. This is the notation used in your book. So that is why I kept these two things. After this class, you can just have a look for this thing. So next classes, how we will do, I will not create PPT because it is not useful for next classes. I will scan the book and I will share in similar manner how I am sharing this PPT. And we'll try to cover half of the chapter in 1 hour class. Then you will have a week to practice, and next class again we will cover half of that other chapter and doubt clearing. As we will be proceeding, we will be reducing English and introducing more Sanskritam, and it will not become tough for you. You will enjoy it. So with this, I am reaching at the end. So I will tell what I am expecting you to do in this week before our next class, and then I will open it for questions. So first I would say, if you are not having, then download a Devanagari keyboard in your mobile. So I use Gboard, it's a Google board. So you can download this. This supports Sanskrit. If you are downloading Hindi or you have Hindi, then it will work for 95% of uses, but it is some Sanskrit things are not there in Hindi, so you will not be able to write that. Along with that, for Hindi, Google will use Hindi autocorrect. So many words you will write differently, so that are wrong in Sanskrit, but right in Hindi. So I will recommend you to download Gboard and have a language along with your mother tongue or something. You can have Sanskritam also. To write Sanskritam, you don't need to go and press on this and all. You can write through Roman also. And some intelligence is there. So every time you don't write everything very correctly, guess also will work. So this you will start writing, then that word you can use to put in Sakalyam to dissect that to figure out what ending it is. So this is first homework I would recommend. After downloading, again you have to practice some typing. It will be helpful. And for Sakalyam, you make a login over there, and login there. If you see the video like how to use it, if you can manage in your free time, that also is a good thing. Then now the tool on that website, you will go and tool and dissect word. So one is dissect word, where you will write, suppose you wrote a word Ramaha. So now you copy that word and paste into dissect of Sakalyam and press the enter or whatever and see what this word is made of. So it will split you like this: ra, small ra plus a plus ma plus a, then visarga. So now whenever you are pronouncing, you have to pronounce every letter what is coming. You don't have to eat anyone in between. So all those people who know Hindi, they will have a problem here. Because when in Hindi, so many things go, means they are not pronounced. Like Janata, if it is there, every Hindi speaker will pronounce it Janta. So the na, a attached to na, they don't pronounce. Like Rama, Rama is there. So most of the Hindi speaker will pronounce as Ram. So last a they will not pronounce. So if you do this exercise, then you will come to know in the word there is another sound which is left. You haven't pronounced that. Then in same tools section, you will get a section where transliterate or lipi parivartanam is there. So there you write the same word and convert it into IAST and see how this word is represented in IAST. That is again one exercise. So this I already told, dissection utility. So, and if you understand Hindi, some time back I started creating for NCERT, because most of the Hindi tutorials what I saw on YouTube, they were very Hindi pronunciation specific. So I started creating this. So if you understand Hindi, there is the first video or first tutorial which has the basics of Sanskrita. You can go through that. It will be helpful if you understand. Otherwise, anyway, we will start in our chapter 1. So with this next class, we will have Pravesha book, and we'll start going through that. And I am really thankful that everybody patiently listened to me, and now it is open for questions.